Hey guys, it's Kayla. So today's a little bit of a touchy subject with some of the fabric snobs. I don't consider myself a fabric snob by any means, but I love a good quality fabric. Let's be honest here. Every time that I go to Walmart and look at their fabrics, for some reason, I am just so uninspired. I don't know why, but I walk into a quilt shop and I just have all these different ideas pop into my head. Well, that was a little bit different yesterday because yesterday I saw this Sweet Romance Fat Quarter Bundle and I'm like, you know what? I kind of have a pattern in my head that I would like to try, and these fabrics are just beautiful. I already opened one up so I could look at them, and we have this really pretty larger print floral. This yellow, oh my gosh, this yellow is just absolutely gorgeous. Here's a really pretty pink. And this is where we start to run into a little bit of problems because we have this beautiful white, but it has some darker fabrics on it. I typically don't really follow rules. So I am going to make this quilt and I'm going to wash it without color catchers just to see what happens. Here's this beautiful plaid and then this really pretty solid. So kind of first impressions, I do notice that this fabric has a weird feel. I think it's like heavily starched. That way it has a higher quality feel. I feel like it has more give on the bias than some of my higher quality fabrics, which that's not necessarily a bad thing. Since this has the darker colors on the white and even this heavily dyed pink, if it's not been rinsed super well, or if they use like a lower quality dye, then it's going to most likely bleed. Sometimes I forget to put color catchers in, and I know, what a horrible person. But I haven't had any bleeding problems with like some of my higher quality fabrics. I want to put this fabric to the test. Like, I'm going to wash it without color catchers, give a review on that. I am going to let my kids put it through the rounds, just like any other quilts, and we'll see how it lasts. I am not going to say right now that I would make this fabric into an heirloom quilt that's going to last generations. But let's be honest here. I have this quilt right here that I did finish this quilt. So it hasn't been used heavily. It has been used heavily recently since it's been finished and we have been using it. But there are feed sacks, there are clothing pieces, like I feel some felt. This brown here, like super, super heavy duty, maybe upholstery fabric. I don't know if you'll be able to see this purple right here, that purple, and there's a yellow that has that same texture. It's like a textured, maybe clothing fabric. Our ancestors made quilts out of stuff that they had laying around. Like they were making them for warmth. They were making them for something to do as like parties of women getting together. There's so many quilts made from fabrics that aren't as nice as the fabrics that you can get from Walmart, even the dollar store. If the only fabric that you can get your hands on is the cheap Walmart dollar store fabric, don't let that hold you back from making a quilt. Do what you can with what you have. Don't let the snobs get to you, because there's nothing wrong with this fabric. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making quilts from fabric that you can get anywhere, even if it's pieces of scrap clothing. Do what you can with what you have. Don't let anybody get you down. Let's get this fabric ironed out and I'll whip up a real quick pattern and then I'll get this video uploaded, and then I'm going to be going live to finish this quilt top, and I'm going to see just how cheap I can make a quilt out of these fabrics, because I think so far I have like maybe $15 after taxes in 2 fat quarter bundles that have 6 pieces. So we've got the first fat quarter bundle ironed and ready to go. Now I can see the selvage the best on the white ones. I want to keep that one on top, and I'm going to line up as well as I can, each one on the selvage edge. That way you're wasting the minimal amount of fabric. The less seams we have, the more fabric that you're going to have for your quilt top, because each seam takes up a 1/2 inch of fabric. The first step for me is to change the blade in my rotary cutter because it has not been changed in probably a year, so it was needing it. I am going to line this selvage up with a line. The fabric did move quite a bit when I ironed it compared to my other fabrics. And it looks like the selvage on this fabric is about 1 inch wide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip through every one of the fabrics to make sure that I am going to cut off the selvage completely. It's actually closer to 3/4 of an inch. I do have a tiny bit, I don't know if you can see it right here, a tiny bit of the selvage showing, but that's going to be in the seam allowance, so I'm going to let that go. And they're all good. Okay, so my second cut is going to be to square up one more side. I don't like to move my fabric. I'm going to move my whole cutting mat. And I'm going to do the same thing where I'm cutting off the least amount of fabric as possible. And if I would have took just a little bit more time to line everything up a little bit better, that would have been ideal. I am going off of the lines on my mat rather than the lines on my ruler because my ruler is narrow, but do it however works best for you. And I'm going to flip through and make sure all of them are perfectly straight. Okay, we're good on that. Now I'm going to flip it one more time. I'm going to have to shoot for closer to a 1/2 inch off. It's so nice to have a sharp blade. Okay, and then double check all of those. We're good on this side, and we're good on this side. One last cut. My ruler moved just a smidge, but I'm going to leave it. So my first cut is actually going to be to cut off, let's go with 4.5 inches off of one side. And you can make this up for whatever size that you want because it's a whack and stack, stack and whack method. So that's one piece of our block. Okay, so that ended up being 3.5 because apparently I can't count. But it's okay. So that is one piece. Now I need to write down the sizes. So I can keep track of everything because I do need to cut one more fat quarter. So since there's 6 pieces of fabric in this fat quarter bundle, I am going to do 6 blocks, 6 pieces to make this block. So 1, and then I want to cut this one. I don't want it perfectly in half. I want it to have one side a bit larger. This is all just, I'm making it up as I go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a quarter. And then this side's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half. Okay, so we'll cut that 7.5 and 10 and a quarter. Can't get it lined up very well. We'll slide this one over, pull it apart slowly. That way, if you have to cut it again. Now, I want a small block on this side and a large block on this side, and then large and small. Again, that stays on the bottom, 17 3/4, because I don't want it too matchy. So let's do one at 5 3/4. So I need to write that down. 12. I'm going to leave a big and 2 skinnies. I think that's what I'm going to do. So it's easier if we don't have any seams matching up if it is a beginner quilt. Let's do it at 9 1/4. And then I think I want to cut this one shorter this way. So we'll move this one over here. That way maybe it looks like we're working harder than we actually are. And we'll do, so let's go with 4 1/4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we don't have anything that's 6 either. Almost cut it with a pencil. Let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this one stays. This one gets flipped under once. This one, you take the top 2 and put it on the bottom. This one will take 3. This one will take 4. And this one will just take the bottom and move to the top. So we're going to sew these 2 together and these 2 together. And then once these are together, we'll add this one on. And then we'll add this one on. And then we'll sew those all together. And that will be our block. Okay, and here is the finished block for the whack and stack and whack that I just literally pulled out of thin air. Like there's no pattern for this. I just made it up. Now, since we have seams going both ways, we are going to have to square this up. And I am going to square it up by trimming off the extra on this block or part 1 and this one right here. But we are going to make sure that it's perfect square and each block is perfect square, so that way we have a nice flat quilt top. Okay, so I'm going to line it up with lines on my cutting mat. So we end up trimming off just a smidge down here and quite a bit up there. So there's the first piece off on this side. Just a tiny bit, like part of it was only 1 thread. Since my white is square, I am only going to be trimming off 1 more side. 2 threads, and then the 1/2 inch, which was part of what was left over from a seam allowance. So it ends up being 17 by 19 1/2. And that is the finished block. And if you want to pause and screenshot, that is the end of this video. Check the second half, which will be live tonight, and then there'll be a third follow-up of getting it completely finished. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and check out one of these videos if you want to. And if you like this and want to see more content like this, then don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. I'll put the sizes of each unfinished block